Hey everybody, Jeremy here, and welcome to a new episode of Sipping with Jeremy. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Dos Boots Mezcal. Now, Dos Boots was founded by three friends who had a shared interest of surfing and mezcal. So Carlos Gomez was living in Oaxaca, where he was a surfer by day and a mezcal bartender at night. He moved to California in 2017 and made friends with Jim Shubin and Joe McElroy, who had the common interest of surfing and mezcal. Not exactly sure when they decided, but I'm sure it was after a little bit of drinking mezcal themselves that they decided to make their own line. And they decided to call it Dos Boots because they were bringing two cultures together, the Mexican culture and the American culture, and they were pairing together like a nice pair of boots. Today from Dos Boots, we are going to be trying their artisanal espadín, their ancestral espadín, the artisanal quiche, and then their ancestral castilla. Now let's go ahead and get started with the artisan espadín. One of the really cool things about all of the Dos Boots products is that they put all the information on the back of the label here. So it gives you the village it's made at, the producer, how it's pressed, how it's fermented, all that fun jazz. So it gives you all the information on the label, which you're starting to see more from these true artisanal mezcal producers, but it is also still really nice just to know that they are giving recognition to the people who are making this for them. So the artisanal espadín is made in Las Margaritas, Oaxaca. It is pressed by a Tona mill, and it is fermented in wooden vats. Let's go ahead and give it a try. So to me, this is a great example of what espadín actually tastes like. For a lot of you out there who have had just kind of your generic mezcals, you've probably had them and thought, oh, this is a little too smoky for me. This reminds me of like a Mexican scotch. And over smoked, I've mentioned this before in other videos I've done dealing with mezcal, but over smoked mezcal just means that something went wrong in the cooking process, because agaves are beautiful plants that have different characteristics and different flavors to them depending on which one you use. And when you over smoke agave and then you just get this smoky mezcal or smoky, agave spirit, you're kind of losing all the beautiful characteristics of the plant itself. So in this artisanal espadín, you get a lot of tropical fruit, a little bit of peach, but then you also get some guava and some mango too. There is a really nice grassy flavor too, a little bit of that white pepper as well. So there are some savory flavor characteristics here with that white pepper and that grassiness, but really nice and fruity. There are just soft hints of smoke. There's not really a smoke flavor. It's kind of more of like if you ever had like a really charred like hot dog or hamburger off a grill, and there's that little bit of like char kind of smokiness in the back end, like after you've eaten it, after you've been done eating for a little bit. That's what this has. Just that like faint idea of smoke on the back, or in the background, that just really lets the fruit come up front, and that more savory kind of herbaceousness, and then just kind of in the background, this little bit of smokiness. Now let's go ahead and move on to the ancestral espadín. So this is the Dos Boots ancestral espadín. Some of you might wonder what ancestral means, and that's kind of just it's not a regulated term, but it's a term that's used in mezcal when you're making it in the way of your ancestors. So that means everything's done in clay. There's no stainless steel, there's no high-tech anything. It is all done in clay pots. So this ancestral espadín was made in Oaxaca, Catalan, Oaxaca, and was fermented in clay and then double distilled in clay as well. Anytime you see ancestral on a mezcal, what they're talking about is an old school way of making mezcal. So yeah, Tahona pressed, meaning that there's no, electric mill, nothing new age about that, and then also clay fermented and distilled. Now let's go ahead and give it a try. The ancestral espadín is definitely more herbaceous. You got a lot more of those grassy, vegetal kind of characteristics, a lot more of that vibrant white pepper as well. There is some softer stone fruit on the back end, but definitely more of a savory herbal agave here. And it's really cool just to see that difference. I mean, I know these are two different parts of Oaxaca that these come from, but just the little difference of, what is distilled in and what is fermented in, changing the profile of the same agave that much, where you're getting a lot more of those savory characteristics on the ancestral. And yeah, just giving you more of the vegetalness that is agave. Now let's go ahead and move on to the artisan quiche. Dos Boots gets their artisan quiche from La Paya, Miahuatlan. And with this one, for the agave crushing, they actually do it by wooden mallet. So you can only imagine having these big pieces of agave, the piñas of the agave, and just whacking away with it at these big mallets. Like, that's a workout, man. Even John Henry might have to take a break from that, you know? But yeah, let's go ahead and give this one a try. Very citrusy, very floral in its flavors here. You get a lot of like vibrant lime zest up front. Then it leads into this little bit of like jasmine and violet petal kind of idea. It's a very floral kind of flower petals idea in the flavor profile. And then there is a soft kind of salty soil earthiness on the back end, which leads me to think that these agave, the cliche agaves for this, were grown in volcanic soil, because there's a really vibrant saltiness to this, and this kind of brings a hardiness to it that there isn't up front. Up front, again, you get this really nice vibrant lime zest, these rose petal, floral petal kind of ideas that give you this very nice kind of lightness and prettiness to this, and then that little bit of that salty soil aspect on the back end brings a little bit of hardiness to the finish on this, so just kind of rounding it out. And yeah, just this is definitely one that I would drink neat, or you know, if you do throw an ice cube in there, you definitely see it expand as the water dilutes into it. But yeah, this is definitely a fun journey for a mezcal. Takes your taste buds on a journey. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Ancestral Castilla. For their Ancestral Castilla, Dos Boots sources this from Oaxaca, Catalan. And again, since this is an ancestral style, that means it is fermented and distilled in clay pots. Let's go ahead and give it a try. This one starts out a lot fruitier than the other Dos Boots that we've talked about in this video. A lot of white peach, a lot of nectarine, a lot of stone fruit notes on this one, really. Just really soft. Then you get hit with this really vibrant white pepper. Really dries up the palate. Kind of reminds me of like tannins on a wine, really. And that just leads to a little bit more grassiness on the back end. But then that fruit comes back. It's more apple on the finish. It's not as much of the stone fruit up front. It's a little bit more red apple on the back end. And to me, that's the fun part when you play with all these different types of agave, is that you are getting these different flavor profiles, and you're getting things that you wouldn't expect from, you know, basically a cousin of a succulent. These guys this Castilla has a lot of great flavors that develop on that palate. Like I said, you know, you start out with some stone fruit, then you get super savory in the middle, and then you get a little back end fruit too. And it's just one of those that, you know, I can tell that if you're going to keep drinking this, you know, you add some water, you add ice cube, you'll get a little bit more of the aromatics on here, and then you'll get a little bit more of that maybe stone fruit here. But yeah, this is just a really fun one. Again, develops on the palate really nicely, and kind of takes your palate on a little journey. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this episode of Sipping with Jeremy. Thanks for joining us. I hope you learned a little bit something about Dos Boots. I hope you gained appreciation for what they do. It is really cool that they are working with all these different producers from around Mexico to get their agaves, to make their distillate. And I love that they are very transparent with all the information on the backlight. That's awesome because, you know, in this world of booze, sometimes people like to be very secretive about what they do. Carlos, Jim, and Joe of Dos Boots want to make sure that the people they're working with get the recognition they deserve, because they're the ones making this delicious juice. So thank you for joining us. Y'all have a good one. See you soon. Drink well.